we got some different stuff going on with this controller here. We had 12 zones in total. These two right here are nothing. Well, I take that back. I think they may be something because that head in that corner right there that's busted off, I haven't got it to come on yet. So I think it may be tied to this. We'll get to that in our testing. But as I went through, I've noticed 3 heads, 4 heads, 2 heads in some cases on each one of these zones. And they're running pressure that the water is starting to atomize. We call it atomization. It's coming out with such force that it's breaking the water droplets down and it's misting out of the heads. Completely inefficient, a total waste of water. So I paired up the zones. I took everything. You see, number 1 now has 2, number 2 has 2, number 3 has 2, number 4 has 2, number 5 has 2. This one works heads along this edge right here. There's nothing else unless one of these happen to run that zone there. There's nothing else really to pair it to. It would make sense that there would be another one back behind me here, just because nothing gets that area right now. So, and then this one's that pool water deal. So, yeah. This system was probably bid out, and that's in this area. There's a lot of contractors that will bid out a system by the zone. They'll charge by the zone to install a system. And that's the problem with this. This could have been done easily in 6 zones, a 7th zone to control whatever you wanted to control with the pool, and been done. But no, we charge double the amount because we charge by the zone, and charging $800 to $1,200 a zone at 12 zones versus charging by the head. I can only fit so many heads in this yard. I think there's roughly about 30 or something like that on it. I can only fit, I didn't totally count yet, but I can only fit so many heads in a yard. So if I charge by the head, I cannot, without a real big stretch, overcharge the customer. But I can split up all of those zones, and I can run that on 12 zones when I really only needed 6 zones. And I can charge the customer a whole lot more. I think that's what's happened in this case, just by the layout and just by how everything's done. You gotta watch. So if you're a homeowner and you're getting a price from a company on your irrigation system install, and they want to do it by the zone, you might want to check and make sure how many heads they're putting on each zone, because there's a lot of dishonest contractors out there that will overcharge you. They will put 2 to 3 zones, or maybe 4 heads per zone, when you got enough water pressure and you got enough volume, as in this case, to be able to run 7 or 8 heads just fine and more efficiently. So if you're looking at a price on a new irrigation system, you might want to check that out. You might want to think about that. Question your contractor, see how many heads they're putting on each zone. Make sure that they're not chopping the zones in half. And if they are, ask them the reason why they're only running that much. Get them to show you how much pressure you have and what the flow rate is. What is your gallon per minute? That's really more important than your PSI. You really only need 35 to 55 PSI. You can get by on 35 PSI with a lot of these heads. 45 is probably more ideal. 55 is incredible, but you've got to have the gallon per minute. These standard rotors, the single stream that shoots straight out and it spins around, typically most of your companies are just going to put straight 3 gallon a minute nozzles in those things and run it. Really, what you should be doing is you should be running a 6 gallon a minute nozzle on all your 360s. Your 180 degrees should be 3 gallons a minute, and your 90 degree head should be 1.5 gallons a minute to match your precipitation rate across the yard. I'm guilty of not knowing that beforehand for quite some time, but make sure your irrigation contractor is up on these things. You want to make sure that your landscape contractor, your irrigation contractor, knows exactly what's going on. Why is he only putting 2 on there? Why am I need you to show me that I'm only getting 6 gallon a minute, or I'm only getting 9 gallon a minute on on my at the point of connection versus, hey, I could be running 24 gallon a minute. I paired some of these things up, and now I have 8 heads running on one zone, and they are running just fine. And here it is getting down towards the middle of the day, middle of the morning, and let's see what time we got here, 9:47, so we're almost 10 o'clock. Towards the middle of the day, your water usage is higher on a municipal system than early in the morning, 4 or 5 o'clock. So I'm out here near 10 o'clock. I'm running 8 heads just fine. I know that 4 o'clock in the morning when the system comes on, it's going to run this even better than what it's running it right now. So I'm looking at around 24 gallon a minute. Now, I'm going to try to sell this customer on the idea of re-nozzling these heads, giving 6 out in the middle, 3 up around the edges where it's 180 degrees, 90 degrees back in the corners where we only need 1.5 gallons. And the reason is that 6 gallon a minute is turning all the way around, whereas this gallon and a half here is only shooting a quarter of that. So we only need a quarter of the water versus what that one out there does. If you see in the middle of your yard where around the edges, hey, it's healthy, it looks good. In the corners, it's really looking good. But out in the middle of the yard, it's just not looking that great. It's kind of dry. It's more brown. It's not quite as green as the other areas. That's because the middle of the yard is not getting as much water as what the edges and the corners are. So if you're a homeowner and you're looking for somebody to install your irrigation system, make sure that your irrigation contractor, your landscaper, knows about these things and is taking these things into account as they plan out your system. Y'all have a good day.